next week. Yes, that's two. We've got Rich and Jim from Fightin Phillies and the Phillies Talk podcast. And guys, the Mets are hitting the road, and they're going down to the city of brotherly love, down to your area. Welcome to MetsMusings, and what can we expect from the Phillies this time around?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm going to introduce my co-host, Mr. Jim Mulry, to tell you. How you doing, Gary?
All right.
Rich, Gary. Phillies need help. First of all, Cliff Lee's out. He's got a bad elbow. And I think the Phillies need to, I've told Richie this, they need to have a barn sale, do what the
A
Marlins
yard
are
sale.
doing. Yeah. Just do what the Marlins are doing, because it's not working, Gary. It ain't working, man.
Yeah, it's tough. The Mets and Phillies, this is really kind of a big series because it's the big series for fourth place in the National League East. But everybody is so bunched together that really nobody's out of this race yet.
No,
That's true.
That's for sure. Yeah, the Phillies are... and the Mets are keeping themselves neck and neck as far as the bottom of the NL East, as you said, Gary. And no easy answer for it. Both clubs have a lot of talented players, but so far they just can't put it all together for one reason or another.
And what's the feeling with the Cliff Lee situation? When you get to an elbow in this day and age especially, the first thought immediately is, oh boy, are we going to need Tommy John surgery?
Yeah, that's the first concern. And right after Cliff Lee went for his MRI on those elbows, he was on the camera. The Phillies were on the road at the time, and he was showing his teammates how he had to put his arms up to the MRI, and apparently Cliff Lee is not used to this. He hasn't had many arm problems at all throughout his whole career, but now suddenly that is in question as we're talking the end of May here in 2014, and Cliff Lee's been a mainstay for the Phillies for the past couple of years, and it would be a shame to lose him this way now.
It sure would, Rich. I just, I think the Phillies, what helps them is, Cole Hamels is still, I think, he hasn't pitched like he did in 08. Of course, he never will. But, I don't know. It just, they need help pitching. They're not getting, what they're not doing is getting the 2-out hits. I mean, I watched the Mets the other night against the Pirates, and, they got a couple runs on 2-out hits, and let's face it, the Phillies aren't getting them. And I had made mention to you, Rich, that the Mets are a starting pitcher away from really, really being good. And I'm not good with names, but the kid that's out with the arm, had the Tommy John surgery. If he was there this year, I think the Mets would be a real contender.
Well, Jimmy, they're still not. They're not always getting those big 2-out hits. And the other day, first baseman Lucas Duda against Arizona over the last weekend left 15 guys on base in the series. So they're not. They're still. That's what they're lacking. They're getting guys on. They're just not getting that big hit. Now, they've done better since firing the hitting coach. They fired him on Monday, and. Some people say, maybe that's going to fire them up. Sometimes it does, firing a coach. But I think his philosophy, while the philosophy itself is sound with the take a good pitch, you want to get to a good pitch, I think what happened is, you hear rumors when somebody gets fired, and there's rumors coming that maybe he was filling these guys' head with too much information instead of, they were wondering every time, thinking when they went up to hit instead of just getting up there and hit it. And I did a story last week on Lee Mazzilli's son, L.J. Mazzilli, who's in the Mets minor league system. And it turns out that Lee Mazzilli went to visit Yogi Berra at his home. And Yogi asked after Lee Mazzilli's son, and Lee said that his son was struggling a little bit. And Yogi said, just tell him to hit the ball. Just see it and hit it.
That's it. Yogi, did you ever read the story about that, Gary? Yogi was trying to show Eddie Kramer when he came up how to hit the ball, and he's, with the feet. And he says, just watch me hit the ball, will you? Yeah. But no, they, I think A.J. Burnett's going to, I don't know, he's not really helping the Phillies. Oh, somebody on the Phillies just got a base hit, but I think that the Mets seem to give the Phillies fits. It just the last few years, the year the Phillies were really bad in the early 2000s and the Mets were good, the Phillies had their numbers. So I guess it goes in cycles. But Gary, I wanted to ask your opinion. What do you think the Marlins this year? Do you think they did the right thing, or biting a bullet for a year or two? And look at them this year; they're really hot. They're playing well.
Well, I don't think anybody thought they'd be this good this fast. We thought they were going to be a few years away, and they really have a pretty good team. But oddly enough, they're great at home but stink on the road. So that could come back in the second half of the season and hurt them. Plus the fact that they've lost Jose Fernandez, the stud pitcher. He too is going to get Tommy John surgery. So, and he'll be lost longer than Matt Harvey for the Mets. So, it's an epidemic with these surgeries, and hard to see what's going on in the National League East, especially even take a look at the Washington Nationals. I mean, they're a game below 500.
Yeah, they're struggling. I think there's a lot of like you say, and Rich and I discussed it a lot. You're all right. There's a lot of Tommy John surgery, and let me run something by you, Gary. I'm of the opinion, and I haven't expressed this to Rich yet. This just came to me. Could it be that Roy Halladay might have had a touch of that? I mean, I know he's 37, but that's maybe why he retired. He couldn't get anybody out. You think maybe that was his problem because he couldn't. The last game there, he couldn't have gotten me out in my condition. So I just think that could that have been it, or maybe just too many innings in the arm?
It's possible, and I think I may be mistaken. Maybe Rich, you know the answer to this, but I think a few years ago he had a partial tear, and he opted not to get the surgery to pitch through it, and it's possible that. That could have done him in the long run. He did get a few more years. And then, like you say, he's 37, had a good career. Maybe it's time just to go.
Yeah, and he pitched thousands of innings over his career. I'm just signing on to Baseball Reference to check that out. But, yeah, he's pitched 2,749 innings
wow.
in a 16-year career. And the way Doc threw the ball you got to figure that sooner or later you're going to have arm problems, and Halladay eventually snuck up on him at 36 years old, but look at that great career he had even at 33 years old. In 2010 he went 21-10 for the Phillies, and he won the Cy Young Award to top his career off in 2010. So
right, we Gary, Rich and I don't know if you're a Solomon person, but Rich and I had the pleasure of seeing him. I saw him pitch against Minnesota, even though he lost. He was, Halladay was, one of the best pitchers I think. Of course, I've always been a Steve Carlton guy, but Halladay was really, really good.
Well, you can't beat either one of those guys.
Well, hey, what do you think? What do you think of the Mets getting Curtis Granderson? Do you think he's going to help them?
I think it's going to be a good signing. I think it's going to take a little time. I think he had a little adjustment to do with the ballpark and with the different pitchers, and he's starting to show some signs of life. He's hitting a little bit now, and that's all you can ask. I think he'll put it together. He's too good, and he's smart. He may, if he's not hitting the home runs, he might go to hitting the line drives to the gaps and get the doubles and triples. And the name of the game is to drive in runs. Home runs isn't the end all, the be all.
Right.
In any, as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather have guys hitting singles with guys in base and driving in runs, and than hitting home runs, trying to hit the fences all the time.
Right. Let me ask. I got two questions. First of all, what do you think of Chase Utley as a ball player? And secondly, you think Kevin Collins will be back as manager of the Mets next year?
Chase Utley is a son of a gun that I can't stand, but he's a damn good ball player. And I'm impressed with the comeback he's making. He's had some knee problems, and those knees can really screw you up. And I guess they have to watch how they play him, as they do a lot of players. But he's just unbelievable. Have a terrific year this year. And let's see, Terry Collins. A day or so ago, I would say Terry Collins wasn't going to make it to the All-Star break. Now I'll say Terry Collins may not make it to the All-Star break.
Right. I kind of feel for the guy. Here's a guy. I thought last year the Mets might be turning it around a little bit, and then their best pitcher goes down with Tommy John surgery, and they're like, holy mackerel. And the kid pitching tonight, he's mowing him. I don't know the Mets number 45 right-hander, but he's striking them out left and right. He looks like Don Drysdale out there.
Yeah, Zach Wheeler is going tonight as we record this, and Mets are up 3-0, and they're facing a kid named Buchanan. What can you tell me about David Buchanan?
He beat the Dodgers last Saturday. Rich, where was he, Reading or Lehigh Valley?
I believe he came up from Reading, and as you said,
Double A.
Yeah, as you said, Jimmy, he's brand new to the Phillies, and he's a young, fresh face on the Phillies, something the Phillies haven't had too much of in the last couple years. He's only, let's see, I'm looking at the press notes here. Well, he's 25. As you said, Jimmy, he's 1-0, and he's looking to become the first Phillies starting pitcher to win each of his first 2 starts since. Can you guess the name, Jimmy?
Ooh,
I don't think you'll be able to guess this.
Huh?
I don't think you'll be able to guess this one.
Well, maybe Bob Walk.
Nope. Antonio Bastardo when he was coming up as a starter. Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy they ought to get rid of. Gary, your bullpen looks pretty good this year.
Well, the bullpen struggled earlier in the year, Jim, but now they've managed to get rid of the dead wood, as we say. And,
I read that, yeah.
And they're going with the youth guys, and so far it's been pretty exciting. They took Henry Mejia out of the starting rotation because he was struggling in the 5th inning and on, and they moved him into the bullpen and gave him the closer's job per se, and he's reacted brilliantly to it so far. They also have some other young guys, Jervis Familia, who's come along, who had been promised for the last couple of years, both as a starter, then they moved him to the bullpen, and he's been looking real good. And they just called up Vic Black, who they got in the Marlon Byrd trade when they traded him to Pittsburgh last year. And he was awesome at the end of last year and struggled in spring training, couldn't get the ball over the plate. But it's worked out some of that. He still had 2 walks the other day, but he pitched two innings, I think, or 1 2/3 innings of shutout ball and got out of a jam. And he could be penciled in for that closer role. And I think Terry Collins is going back in time because the last 2 games the Mets won, well, what he did was he actually had them go out for 2 innings to earn the save. So Henry Mejia pitched the 8th and the 9th, got 6 outs, got the save against Pittsburgh. And then the next day against Pittsburgh, Jervis Familia went out and pitched, I think, an inning in 2/3 and got the save. So maybe we're in a time machine warping back to the time when relief pitchers used to get 2 and 3 innings to get a save.
Boy, hasn't the game changed, though. Nowadays, if a guy throws a complete game, it's like big news. And back, I know when I was a kid, man, that was, most of them threw at least 8 innings, and it's just, I sit here and I watch these games and everything, and I think of some of like the Mets. I watched them. We got the Mets station, PIX down here, and when they're on, I watch that, and they talk about all. They're always talking about the good old days. And I remember at one time I was, I sort of rooted for the Mets because they were, back in the '60s and early '70s, and I'm watching this game right now. The Mets got second and third, or first and one out, and Granderson's up. But I remember I went up to Shea Stadium one time, and you remember a guy named Mark Shamsky?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, he had a monster home run to beat the Pirates. But I was telling Rich one time, I had the pleasure and distinct privilege of watching Roberto Clemente play, and what a ball player he was! Oh my gosh. Eddie Kramer hit one to the wall in right field, and a guy tried to score, was going to score from third, and he threw a strike to home plate. The guy didn't try. I couldn't believe it, So, but that's back when the Mets were just getting good. I think it was '68 or '69. And the funny thing about that, I remember that game because Jerry Koosman pitched, and I was always a big Jerry Koosman fan. Gary, is he still around?
Yes, he's still alive. He's not. We see him once in around the ballpark. He comes in for an alumni deal that they have, but he's. I don't know what he's doing. He did have some tax issues with the government and did do a little time in prison. But he's out now and he's doing well. And same for Tom Seaver, who's had some health issues. But
oh, really?
Well, Seaver had for a number of the last few years, when you'd see him on television or something, a lot of people thought he was drunk, and he was slurring his words, and he'd forget names, and there was really some great concern. And apparently, he's suffering from Lyme disease that he got in Connecticut 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and it was still with him and came out. And he's under treatment, and he said he feels better. He has good days and bad days. It affects him, his physical abilities as well. So, Tom Seaver, who would ever thought he was so strong and so young? And the Mets just got another run. It's 4-0.
Yeah, I know. I'm watching.
We
kind of walked in a room with the bases loaded, right? Yeah. Mulry just sort of remoted the TV set.
All right, so the pitching matchups.
The Mets going to take 5 straight from the Phils? I hope not. God.
Well, we could certainly use it. I know you guys can't, but we certainly could. So the pitching matchup for this weekend series. We got tomorrow Rafael Montero versus A.J. Burnett. How has Burnett been pitching for you guys?
Good, Rich.
He's been pitching very well, actually. He's got a 3-4 record coming into the ball game Friday night with a 3.51 ERA. But Burnett was pretty good for the Phillies early on, and then some losses piled up on him kind of quickly. And as Jimmy said, this initially was going to be a 4-game series with the Mets, but the Phillies and the Mets are going to be very familiar with themselves as they stretch this into a 5-game series now, making up the rain delay game from
April 30th.
April 30th, yeah, back in just about a month ago.
Yeah, first time the Mets went in the Philly, yeah, but it's. I'm sitting here thinking to myself today I'm watching this game, and I'm thinking to myself, I hope the Phillies don't make history and lose 5 straight to the Mets because oh my goodness, it would be bad. But Gary, I sometimes get in trouble for saying what I think, but I think it's going to be the Phillies. I think are going to be hard pressed to win 75. If they win 75 games this year, then I think they'll have a good season. They got a big payroll. They're going to have to make some major moves. They're not going to be popular, but I know Richie and I both don't like Ruben Amaro, the general manager, and we question some of his moves. And I just don't think that I think the Phillies got to bite the bullet for a couple of years. They got to replenish their farm system, and they got a couple of good kids. Darren Ruff's going to be good, but they're depleted. They're going to have to start over.
Do you think they'll trade any of their big name players? Chase Utley, who we talk about, do you think he could be moved for?
I don't think he'll move. I think they're going to try to. We'll see what happens with Cliffley. I'll tell you who I think's going to go. I think Luis is going to go, and I think they might get rid of him. And I also think that believe it or not, I think somebody might try Kyle Kendrick, even though Kyle Kendrick, in my opinion, is the worst pitcher in baseball. I think that he could. I just think he needs a change of scenery. I don't think he's the worst pitcher in baseball, but he just, he's not doing it here. They gave him a big extension, but I think he could. The Phillies have to trade somebody, and get some good young. The Phillies are old, guys. They're in their 30. Ryan Howard's 37 or 35, and Burnett's 37. Cliff Lee's 36. Marlon Byrd's 37. I mean, why the heck would they sign Marlon Byrd? I mean, he's not a bad ball player, but he's 37 for crying out loud. I mean, get some young kids. And of course, then if the Phillies go 67 and 90, whatever, then people will be, oh, but you got to do something because they got to, they're having problems. I'd like to see them. I'd like to see them keep Buchanan. They got another kid. They got some young arms in the down on the farm that are pretty good. And of course, Cole Hamels is the stopper. And either hope that Kyle Kendrick turns it around, and this kid Hernandez. I don't know much about. I'm not impressed with him either. He's a guy that changed. Did Richie tell you about him? Or did you know about him? He went by a different name for 7 seasons.
Yeah, Faustus.
Fausto Carmona.
Yeah, and he'll be pitching Monday against Bartolo Colon, and that's almost like the Social Security game there with those two going at it, the two veterans. But
and I like his first name, by the way, Gary. Fausto Carmona sounds better
than Roberto Hernandez.
Yes, it does. But here we go again. And this is getting ridiculous. But it's just it's 4-0. But Gary, my question, I got a question. I consider you a pretty good baseball guy. Richie's biased, so I'm not going to ask you. What do you think of Dominic Brown?
I don't think I've seen enough of him. If you asked me that after the 5-game series, I probably could give you a better answer. I think he's up and down from what I've seen. Don't know how the consistency is. Didn't he have? He was hot last year for a while there, and then cooled off, wasn't he? I believe
he had a heck of a season last year.
Yeah, and he was hitting some home runs too.
Yeah, you were talking about making a trade, and I don't know if Richie agrees with me, but why not package him and trade him and maybe like Kyle Kendrick and somebody, one of the other players, and get somebody that can help them. I think two things the Phillies need really is they need some good starting pitching, and they need they got to get somebody that can get some hits for them, and they got to get rid of Jonathan Papelbon. I do not like him at all.
Yeah, that's a good possibility, Jim. But getting back to Dominic Brown, as Gary was saying, yeah, he got extremely hot last year in the month of May, to be precise. He hit 19 home runs in the month of May. He finished the season with 27 last year. He wrote his own ticket to the All-Star game, if memory serves me correct, from the Phillies. And this year he's been ice cold in the current homestand before tonight against the Mets in 5 games. He's batting .091. He was just 1 for 11 coming into the first game here with the Mets. And what can you say? The guy just lost his swing all of a sudden. And some had credited him getting his good swing last year with a batting coach, an assistant batting coach that the Phillies hired, who is no longer with the team. And that could be.
Well, he's also trying to pull everything. And, he's going to go to the opposite field. But I think Ryan Howard broke out of his slump, though.
Yeah, he's sort of found his groove a little bit better. But Brown, of course, worked with the legendary hitter and former Phillies assistant batting coach, Wally Joyner. So a lot of people had credited Wally Joyner for helping Dom Brown find his swing last year. He more or less told Brown to just relax. see the ball and hit it. Basically, what Gary was saying about one of the younger Mets that's coming up that he was talking about earlier. So we'll see if Tom Brown can turn it around here.
And I noticed that there's a young guy playing third base tonight, Cesar Hernandez. I believe his name is. What can you tell me about him?
Well,
go ahead, Rich.
I think Jimmy was talking a little bit about him a minute ago. He doesn't really care for him. He's pretty young. His current homestand in 6 games since the Phillies have been home. They're home for the much of the month of May already, and also in June, I believe they're probably about 50-50. But most of the month of May, the Phillies have been home. Cesar Hernandez batting 1 for 19. So he's had a rough streak in 6 games of a homestand for the Phillies already before the Mets came into town.
Yeah, we got another third baseman, Gary Ashe, and he's a little bit better, and Cody Ashe, and but in the Angels game, he made, I think it was 3 errors and cost the Phillies a game, and then he goes out and has a grand slam against Toronto. But another thing I think the Phillies have a problem with, Gary, is they can't beat the American League. They're 1-8 against the American League. I don't know what it is, but it's every year. Rich and I talk about this all the time on our show. They cannot beat the American League.
Man, that's a funny thing. You want to try to clean up whenever you can in those games, and that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, we won the first game against Texas, lost the last 2. Toronto hammered them, and then the Angels. Well, they were 2 pretty good ball games, but it's just. It's really weird, and of course, what's really weird is seeing the Houston Astros in the American League. I still can't get over that.
Yes, that's very strange indeed, but they're a young team too, and they're playing some competitive ball. But
yeah, they're doing it the right way too. Them and the Marlins, I'll tell you what, and I think the Cubs too. I think they're going to be. They got a good general manager, and. I think the Cubs are going to be a few more years, but I told Richie one time. I said, I hope in my lifetime I live to see the Cubs go to the World Series. That would be nice.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big fan of the short season A-League baseball, and we have the Brooklyn Cyclones here in New York with the New York Mets farm scene in the Penn League.
The Staten Island Yankees, too.
And the Staten Island Yankees. And the Phillies have the Williamsport Crosscutters. Will you guys get down to any of those games at all?
No, Williamsport's too far for us. We're going up to Lakewood, Richie and I, in June to see the Phillies A team. And I was fortunate enough to go up there. I've seen some of the – I saw Ryan Howard hit one out. I saw – a lot of of the saw Cole Hamels pitch there. I've seen Gavin Floyd, who's now was with the White Sox. He pitched there. So they got a lot of. We were there one night when Shane Victorino did a rehab start. Lakewood's only an hour from here, and it's a beautiful little ballpark, and they draw very well. Are you what are you close to, Brooklyn?
Yeah, I'll go to the Cyclones, and they draw excellent there for the New York Penn League. Pretty much almost like a full house every night.
Right.
And
they have a team in the Atlantic League called the Long Island Ducks, and they say you can't get a ticket for that.
Yes, they've 3 years. It was 2 or 3 years. 2 years they won a championship back to back.
Yeah, they won last year too, right?
Yeah, and, very exciting. Yeah,
that's Bud Harrelson's team, and
yes, it is.
This game here is getting out of hand, and I just, I think the Phillies will at least get 1 or 2 out of this. But I think both teams are. I think the Mets are going the right direction. But Gary, I don't like Kevin Collins as a manager. I just think that, I don't know. He's been around too long. I think they got to make a change. They need somebody. I think they need a Larry Bowa type guy in there.
Well, a lot of people would like to have Wally Backman up here, which I guess he'd be in that Matt mold of a Larry Bowa. And he's had a lot of the young players at AAA, but I think there's a couple of things that are against him. One is that he had that domestic violence thing, although it was many years ago now. and I don't think they like his style.
And Jimmy didn't hear what the charge was. I think he was domestic violence, Jim.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we'll have to see how that works out. But here's an interesting note from the Phillies press notes for both teams here. David Buchanan and starter Zach Wheeler from the Mets are both from Atlanta, believe it or not. And David Buchanan was originally drafted by the New York Mets in the 6th round of the 2009 draft, but he did not sign. He was taken the next year by the Philadelphia Phillies in the 7th round in 2010, so even a lower round, but he refused to sign in 29 with the Mets, or 2009 rather, with the Mets.
And that happens quite a bit. A lot of these guys, they don't, they think they can go higher the next time, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yep.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. And Rich, you got anything you want to plug at all?
Well, of course, both MetsMusings, the show you're listening to now, and Phillies Talk podcast are back on iTunes, and both shows available there, as well as Stitcher Radio, and also Gary at MetsMusings.podomatic.com. So check us out there, and of course, BaseballTalkRadio.com.
And don't forget, Rich, MLBThisWeek.com.
Oh, yeah.
Where Rich and I host a weekly video and audio show, and you can find that also on Stitcher Smart Radio. And,
yes.
Rich, I'll see you on Sunday night.
Yes, indeed, Gary. It'd be a pleasure. Our next show number 11. So I hope everybody stops by YouTube. Just search MLB This Week. Subscribe to us, and we'll be in your inbox with a show every week.
And Jim, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I hope everything keeps going well for you.
Thanks, Gary. And it's good talking to you. And let's not make it as long this time, okay?
All right, Jim. And
all right, thanks, Gary.
We'll be back after this. All right, guys. Thanks a zillion for coming on.
Thank you, Gary.
Did Jimmy hang up already?
Yeah.
He goes,
always
right?
Hangs up. He does, because he feels that if he hangs up, the show is over. Now he'll call me in about 10 seconds. Hey. So, yeah.